All right, to this now, the Judicial Service Commission has made its recommendations to President Cyril Ramaphosa. In an interesting move, Judge David Unterhalter's name did not make the cut. The JSC chose 4 names for the 2 vacant positions to the Constitutional Court. And let's discuss this further with Judges Matter Coordinator Alison, Tilley and legal expert Advocate Ben Winks. Before we get into this conversation, good afternoon to you both. I'd like us to listen to the JSC last night. Advocate Sesibaloyi, who was talking briefly about the reasoning on how they made their decision.
The question about why was it necessary to vote, I think you have to accept that at this point, the best you're going to get, for reasons that Seka has explained, the best that you're going to get is that there were deliberations, decision was made by vote, the submission to the President and the report will explain how the decision was arrived at, and that's what it is. And at that point, then the reasons or the answer to your question will then become public information at the appropriate time. But I think at this point, you're not going to get better than what we are saying to you now.
All right, let's look at this matter further now. I'll begin with you, Alison. I mean, you're listening to Advocate Sesibaloyi saying that reasons will be made clear at a later stage, but only 4 names made the cut. And Section 174 of the Constitution is very clear. It says the Judicial Service Commission must prepare a list of nominees with 3 names more than the number of appointments to be made and submit the list to the President. So looking at the fact that it's now 4 names, can we then assume that the President will be backed into a corner and only 1 appointment will be made here?
The President is in a position where he can only pick one of the names out of the group of 4. So the opportunity to look at the other candidates now.
All right, Alison's line there appears to be frozen. I'll move over to you, Advocate Winks. I mean, as Alison was alluding there to say that the President now finds himself having to pick one, and we do know that there were 2 vacancies here. Does this then mean, should more than one candidate be picked here, it would be a flouting of rules and we could see this become, once again, subject to a legal challenge?
Well, the practical answer is that the President won't do that. He'll only appoint 1 person. The President is well advised. He's only going to appoint 1 person from this list. And then the second vacancy will have to be advertised again. So those who don't make it for that appointment will probably then be interviewed for the 4th time for that vacant post.
Now, Advocate Winks, some are saying that this, has delayed the process because now it means they have to start again and it could further delay, this particular process. I wonder what are your thoughts on those who are saying that this was not necessary? They should have just picked the 5 candidates and made the process easier.
Well, the Judicial Service Commission is the gatekeeper for judicial appointments, and they have to determine whether someone is appointable. So they are there to protect the President from appointing people who are unsuitable for appointment. So what they have done is to say that all of those who were shortlisted are suitable for appointment, but that David Unterhalter, Judge Unterhalter, is completely unappointable. That's what they've said. And therefore the position has to be re-advertised.
I'll stay with you, Advocate Winks, because I do understand Alison is still not able to join us. One of the things that, is also clear from Section 174 is that the President may make appointments from the list, but also he can decide that maybe he's not happy with some of the names that he has and request a supplemented list instead. Could this supplemented list see Judge Unterhalter making his way back in, or is it the end of the road?
No, I think it's the end of the road for Judge Unterhalter. The reasons alluded to in the questions, as well as the records that were revealed in court for rejecting Unterhalter on the previous 2 occasions, from the reasoning that emerged in the questions, was on the one occasion that he was a white male, and on the other occasion was that he didn't have enough experience as a judge. He'd only been a High Court judge for a few years. Now, both of those reasons could not have been the reasons this time, because they did shortlist 2 white males out of the 4 that they shortlisted. So he wasn't excluded because he's a white male. And also they shortlisted someone, namely Advocate Alan Dodson, SC, who's not even a sitting judge. He has less judicial experience than Judge Unterhalter. So neither of the reasons that were apparent last time are applicable now. So there's some new reason why Judge Unterhalter is regarded as irredeemably unappointable. So it is the end of the road. There's simply nothing, in my view, that he could possibly do to make himself appointable in the eyes of the JSC.
How much of it? Oh, pardon me. Sorry, you may continue. Round up your point.
So the president can refuse to make an appointment if he thinks that the 4 are unsuitable. The 4 are suitable. It would be quite strange if the president refused to appoint any of them. That is a decision that itself could then be taken on review for being irrational.
All right, and I do understand that Alison is back with us in conversation. Alison, one of the things that we saw yesterday was that in the afternoon, in fact, the evening, the JSC took a break for Judge Unterhalter to be able to get some of the documents to one of the most critical questions. I wonder how much of an impact was his answer when he was asked why he presided over an appeal on a matter that he presided over in a lower court at the SCA, something that is, of course, not allowed for judges. And his answer did not appear satisfactory to the commissioners. Do you think this had an impact at all?
I think it might well have had an impact. They were very concerned that he had found himself in the situation and that he was not aware that it had happened. He did, once he'd satisfied himself that he had in fact looked at the matter a second time when he was acting on the Constitutional Court, he did apologize. But I do think the mood in the room was certainly rather more somber after that incident was canvassed.
And should the president, Alison, then decide that he needs maybe a supplemented list, I wonder how much of a challenge is this going to be, given the fact that we only had 5 candidates vying for these 2 positions?
Well, I think it is going to be a problem. The idea of getting these Constitutional Court candidates appointed now was to make sure that there would be a full bench of 11 justices sitting. And if there's any problem with this round, then the fact that there are not 11 justices will then continue to be a problem, and then they will have to be the numbers made up by acting appointments, which are never ideal.
And Alison, I'm keen to find out from you, in your view, we spoke to your colleague, Begazeli Benjamin, who said to us that it was still too soon to tell if the JSC had turned a corner when it comes to its work and even restoring some kind of credibility to its own work. Given the interviews that have set and the processes that followed thereof, what would you say when it comes to this particular subject?
Well, I certainly think today we've seen a lot more focus from the JSC. They've looked more at the question of what criteria they're choosing, and the Chief Justice has reminded them a number of times as to what they need to be looking at. There's still some very grey areas, so there's been a lot of focus on whether people have acted as a judge for long enough, and as candidates said yesterday, well, how long is enough? And the same question was effectively raised today, and I think that's a rather big hole in the list of criteria that the Chief Justice is working from. But we understand they will be working on that going forward, and they have a subcommittee that are going to be dealing with that. So they certainly have improved significantly, and it looks like there's room to improve even more.
And Advocate Winks, staying with, the Constitutional Court, yesterday, there was also this question that came back, even from the previous interviews of Chief Justice. We heard this question about, a possibility of making the Constitutional Court justices an odd number to avoid split judgments, which may have, challenges for some of those that approach that particular court. I'm keen to find out from you. You are in the sector. Do you think that could assist in terms of that particular regard?
Yeah, I think it's certainly a wise position to take that you have. So the court has 11 seats, and a minimum of 8 must sit on any decision or sit on any case. Of course, if you have only 8, then it means that it could be split 4-4. So sitting as an odd number, sitting as either 9 or 11 is typically the best outcome. But sometimes it's unavoidable that 3 of the 11 might have to be recused for whatever reason. So then you have 8, and that's just what they have to contend with. So I don't think there's really a way around it unless they reduce the quorum to 7, but I doubt that would happen.
As a final question then, Alison, yesterday speaking to the Helen Suzman Foundation, one of the things that they were saying is that while the criteria, and the processes appear to now be streamlined, the conduct of the commissioners themselves is also being, really watched very closely by the chairperson, who even said that every single candidate will be treated with respect as well as with dignity. I wonder, do you agree with them when they say that the criteria needs to have a little bit more meat, in order to make sure that some of the issues that are vague are clarified?
There's a lot more that needs to be done. I mean, one of the issues that the JSC has to deal with is what happens when complaints or concerns about candidates come to the JSC at the last moment. And there was certainly a discussion today, behind closed doors, around what had happened yesterday. Now, we don't know what that was about, but it certainly has happened in previous hearings that concerns have arrived at the table very, very late in the day, and they've been allowed in, or commissioners have been allowed to raise them. And I think that's one of the areas around the process that has been pointed out as being particularly unfair, and that's probably going to need a review as well, so as to make sure that kind of thing doesn't happen.
All right, let me thank you both for your time and, of course, giving us your insights there as we watch then to see who the president is going to pick for this position at the Apex Court. That was Judges Matter Coordinator Alison Tilley and legal expert advocate Ben Winks.